episode number 84 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. My guest today is Alexandra Roxo. Alexandra is a writer, artist, spiritual and emotional guide, and teacher who's extremely passionate about the intersection of spirituality and sexuality in the lives of women. Her writing on personal growth, healing, the divine feminine resurgence, moon ritual, and modern spirituality can be read on girlboss.com, Teen Vogue, Mind Body Green, and more. She has been featured in many publications for her deep, sensual, and raw approach to healing and transformation, and has also been named a modern spiritual leader by Well and Good, and has appeared on multiple TV shows and been featured in top podcasts. She was also called to find a way to share her spiritual work with women in places in the world where there is less access to workshops, classes, and retreats. So together with Ruby Warrington, she co-created the online community Moon Club, which consists of hundreds of women worldwide who attend monthly online rituals, empowerment talks, and are guided in journey, meditation, and breathwork practices. Moon Club has since transitioned into Alexandra's group coaching container, Radical Awakenings. She is currently working on her first book with the publisher Sounds True. Welcome to the podcast, Alexandra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we've been on this back and forth for a while, and we finally have you on, so I'm so happy to finally have you.
Yay, me too. Me too.
So can you share your journey, how you began as a filmmaker and then on to learning shamanic journey practice, sacred intimacy work, and meditation? You have such an amazing journey, and I can't wait to hear about it.
So my journey has kind of always started with my own self-inquiry and my own path of self-discovery and connection to spirit and to my body and to my femininity. And so I would say that I've always been a little bit non-traditional. So I have been someone that marches to the beat of my own drum, and the way that I always kind of contemplated my existence was not like, oh, I need to, get a job and have a money and, get married and have the kid and then, die, or whatever. Like I'm here on a soul mission for some sort of a greater evolution of my own being and a part of the collective being. And I knew that from a young age, because that was the way that my mother taught me an understanding of my existence was you're a soul and you came here at this time to learn certain things. And if you don't learn those things, you'll have to repeat this lifetime again until you learn those things. And my first spiritual teacher taught me that when I was 12, and my mom took me to him. He's also an intuitive.
That's an amazing thing to hear when you're 12.
Yeah. So he taught me about my aura and my chakras and what karma looked like. He explained to me karma. He said, you have these kind of rocks that are tied to you, and you're trying to go through life and like perform and sing and dance, but you can't with these rocks that are tied to you. And that's how he kind of explained to me like the karmic baggage,
Yeah.
So, and my connection to God was always really strong. Like my devotion to God and to spirit was always like very strong from when I was like a kid. I like just felt a lot for God, for Jesus, for the angels. I had mystical experiences when I was like, a preteen and a teenager. And it was just very important to me. And then my how I interwove like my then discovery of what was the feminine face of God, and how did my sexuality and my body and my expression fit into my relationship to spirit. And then that became a journey because I didn't see it reflected around me where I lived in the Bible Belt and in Georgia. So there was like a lot of working through shame and fear and guilt around my self-expression, and knowing that in my heart that women's bodies were not gross and women's bodies didn't need to be skinny to be lovable, and that women were magical, intuitive, priestess beings because we have the capacity to give life through our body. So this whole
Amen.
yeah,
I just have to say that. I just have to say
yeah.
amen.
So like this capacity to give life that then was such a threat to like the church and all these things. And so it's like, oh no, a women's womb is dirty, her blood is dirty, her body needs to be small, it needs to be thin, it can't take up space, she can't take up space, she can't have a voice, there's no women in the Bible, like all Judaism, like there's all of this stuff that really pissed me off at a young age. And I thought, this is not right. I was like, no, sexuality is sacred, my body is sacred, my blood is sacred, I know this to be true. But it took me, a lot of study, feminist study, matriarchal study, paganism study. Like I studied a lot of different things, especially when I was in my early 20s, as I was discovering, wait a minute, I actually have a deep knowing that I am super sacred and that I am a part of God, goddess, divine. And so I made a lot of art and I wrote about that because I felt like there's something wrong, like there's something off in this reality where women are being killed or harassed or banished or all of these things for thousands of years for being healers and priestesses and oracles. And I was just baffled how women's clits were getting cut off and women were getting sold into sex trafficking, and women were getting stoned to death for looking at a man in their community or village. I was like, what the hell? How did this happen? Sorry, I just turned off my air purifier. I was like, how did this happen? How did humanity get into this zone where, the numbers, it's like right now we're in this, global pandemic, but the numbers as to people who are, and women and children who are sold in sex trafficking is even more gnarly than the amount of people dying right now.
Oh, that is horrendous.
The numbers of children that die every year from malnutrition. There's this great kind of thinker and theorist, Charles Eisenstein, who wrote this beautiful article about like, how come we didn't pay attention to that stuff? How come we haven't been paying attention to the 200 million children that die every year? Or that number might not be completely spot on, but it's somewhere around that. So for me, I just like my life has been a devotional kind of exploration and study in this. And so it has traversed mediums. So through writing, theater, photography, film, have been my own personal inquiry into this search for the feminine, for a healing around the female body and sexuality, and how that merges with like as a vehicle for deep mystical insight, and not something that we should leave out of our spiritual path, but something that we should deeply connect with as part of our spiritual path. And that's been my greater life study. So I've made films, documentaries, web series, all kinds of things that have been a part of my own greater search and healing.
It's so interesting because as you were talking, you bring up something so real, which is the collective feminine shame that has been around and is still around. And it's interesting because empaths, I'm sure, pick up on it regardless of, like for me, for example, I've always been an empath, and picking up on energy that I don't even know where it came from. And I never had any sexual abuse growing up, but I've had that shame. I've had the shame of, not being the right weight, or there's this shame. And I feel like for myself, I've worked on meditation for over 20 years, and I still, if I really get quiet, feel those rocks that you had mentioned, and get into that collective shame like that women have. And it doesn't matter how much work you put into it, you could still feel it in the world. It's such an important thing to touch upon.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're still deeply in the healing around it. We're to me, the impact that we've had on the climate, and neglecting the climate, neglecting the
Earth,
mother, is the same as neglecting the feminine.
Yeah, and I think about all the listeners going through their fertility journeys, and I know that there's a lot of shame around that as well. Like what you're supposed to be like, or what you're supposed to, or expected. And I know from my patients, they go to, they come to me and tell me about their family or extended family and the comments that they say. And it's kind of just an interesting thing to bring up. It's such a truth and a fact, and something that people are still dealing with even today. And you would think that we'd be over a lot of this, but we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
No. And I will say, though, to a more positive aspect is, as you were talking, I witnessed such courage from you to be, to walk your own path, and to also have this self-expression, because I know that self-expression and art in general, you have to have a lot of courage to voice your truth, and you also have to have a lot of courage to express something that hasn't been expressed in the past. It seems a lot easier and more safe to express something that has been expressed, because it's done well, and that's why people kind of go by a certain they learn from others and they follow and mimic. But when people express themselves in their own unique light, I find that to be something of such courage.
Yeah, thank you. It has not been easy at times.
Yeah, I know. And I'll tell you, but it does seem to be something that you've been gifted with.
Oh, thank you.
Let's put it that way. And I think it just sounds like you're taking that gift and passing it forward and teaching with that gift.
I am, and I'm grateful for that. And it is a gift. It's something, I always say it's some freakish nature about me.
We all have a freakish nature, but it's about like wearing it proud.
Yeah. Like, just like, well, for some reason, it's not that I don't give a fuck, but that, like, for me, it's the most important thing for me to just speak my truth and to live this mission. And with it comes all of the like shadow work around it, because my attention wouldn't be turned toward this had I not incarnated into patterns and different karma and fear and pain, shame, and all the stuff around my own body and sexuality, which called my attention to it, right? So it's like whatever lessons that we have to kind of traverse on our hero's journey, it's like it means a lot of, we have to go through the pain and the fear and the shame and all of the things associated with turning that shadow frequency into the superpower frequency.
So it sounds to me like you took that path and you figured it out, or you at least walked the walk or the journey to address your own shadow and karma and basically everything that was holding you back and bringing awareness. And it sounds like you took that and are now teaching it to others. So can you walk us through how you figured it out for yourself and what you did to get you through to how you feel and are able to express yourself today?
Yeah, thank you. So it's been a lot of deep work, you know. The spiritual journey, the true one, is not for the faint of heart. It requires a lot of deep unraveling and mystery and unknowns and like sort of drops in the dark, because it's a weird mystical path like you can read about, in the Bible, or in, Rumi, or um the saints praying, and um a medicine path where you really are faced to look at your deepest depths and what's hiding there. And not everybody's path is that this life. Like for mine, it really has been like a very deep shamanic, but some people's it's been 10 times more intense than mine. So
Yeah.
mine, it's all relative, right? So whatever is intense for one is might not be for someone else, right? I have friends that have had like spiritual awakenings where it's like they've gone through 2 near-death experiences, so it's
Wow.
different for everybody. But the work for me is sitting with the discomfort, sitting with the things that are the most difficult, the most uncomfortable, the scariest, that bring the most shame, guilt, fear, denial, repression, separation, the core kind of collective wounds. So actually identifying where each of us is holding something. And there's some great ways that you can kind of look at that. You can contemplate, you can meditate. There's astrology, there's gene keys, there's human design. So there's all these different ways you could, seek self-understanding, so that you can see, okay, wow, I have some wounds around, let's say, self-worth. And therefore I'll keep getting in the hamster wheel around my self-worth until I work through it, and working through it is not like, okay, I'm going to just buy an online course about self-worth and it's going to be done. It might be years of actually sitting and claiming your worth and being rejected again and again and again, until one day you realize, you have an aha, and you realize your worth is not based on anyone else's understanding of you but you. But that epiphany might take years to come up.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like there are different, obviously, levels to our kind of consciousness and understanding. And I think we're met with the lessons at the level we can understand them, when we can understand them.
Such
So
truth to that. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, okay, first it's like sort of, okay, wow, I mean, I noticed the other day, I was like, wow, I'm still holding some shame around my sexuality. Damn it. And part of that is just living in the collective soup that we're in. So as
Right.
much as I want to clear it, I'm just like living in a collective world where I'm not able to talk about my orgasms in a circle of women as being just normal, right? Like it's just, that's not socially acceptable. So it creates shame in a sense where, oh, well, if I can't discuss this, it's quote unquote private or weird.
Yeah.
Then it kind of
And you
goes,
feel judgment.
yeah, then it goes hiding in the corner. And then one day you're like, oh shit, like I haven't really been able to talk or express this part of myself. And so it's gone into the shadow, and it's kind of, it's collecting dust,
Yeah.
So it's interesting when we set off to uncover these parts. You can look at it from also a very psychological, like a Jungian way of looking at the psyche, as if we're in this kind of collective soup, and we have these layers to ourself that we don't have conscious access to, but we only access in, say, dreams or a trance or something like that. And sometimes like our deepest lessons will come through from those states. So I feel like the feminine spiritual path is really, yeah, accessing our deep selves via dance and prayer and trance and eroticism, and these kind of nonlinear ways of accessing spirit, and therefore accessing these lost parts of the self, the lost part of you that's just like the wild, beautiful priestess who wants to dance, or who is trained in like the erotic arts and like knows deeply in her bones that her sexuality is sacred. But it takes so many layers of feeling and grieving and screaming and all of the things to get to that place where that comes through. It's kind of like a snake shedding its skin again and again and again.
Yes, totally. I mean, really, so many ancient cultures have talked about this. And Rumi mentions that we have, what is it, 1,000 veils? And then those are the veils to God.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And we just keep coming back to planet Earth, peeling it away.
Peeling and peeling away. And what also is interesting to me is the goddess Guan Yin. She's the goddess of compassion. And in ancient China, she's also considered the goddess of fertility. In ancient China, they used to pray to her during the full and new moon for fertility. So if people had a hard time conceiving, they would pray to Guan Yin. And what's interesting also that I mentioned so many times, people are probably sick of it, but I'll keep mentioning it because it's such an important lesson, is that the heart and the womb are connected. There's literally a vessel that connects the heart and the womb.
Yes.
And interesting that the Guan Yin is also the goddess of compassion, and she's the goddess of fertility. And so talking about one of the most amazing things we can do is have self-compassion and self-love as women and really embrace our feminine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. And that takes time, you know.
Yeah. So what ways have you felt like you were able to connect to the divine energy?
I love ritual.
Yeah.
I love ritual. Like my whole life is pretty ritualized for like 15 years, 16 years. I don't even know. At least like when I got into this path when I was like 19 is like when I started practicing moon ritual and ritual with my blood and my monthly bleed. I mean, I was like total 19-year-old kind of, you know, baby witch priestess. And that's when I started making altars in all my homes and every room and paying attention to the energetics and to like the feng shui and to the lunar cycles and to the astrological cycles and to working with herbs, working with stones, working with baths, working with song incantation. And I sort of activated my that part of my psyche in my being, the medicine woman, the healer, the priestess, the witch, whatever you call her, the shaman. I started really working on her, and that was a beautiful remembrance because all of those things are so feminine, right? Like it's like connecting with God, goddess, through song, through dance, through ritual, through communion with nature, through creating beauty in the home, through creating beauty with the body, through self-adornment. These are very 3D, you know, three-dimensional, present body grounded arts that women have been practicing for thousands of years.
Yeah.
You know, you could look at every culture and the goddesses and the way they adorn themselves and the altars and the regalia and the offerings and the incense and the candles and the smoke and the food. And you know, Western culture, especially capitalist America, like that's not something that we value. We've lost. We're a country with no culture and no connection to the sacred. And I really mean that. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know that's extreme, but as a culture, as a country, we don't have it. So we have all these tiny little cultures, and maybe you're in your ethno kind of graphic background, like in your family history, maybe you're like, oh, but you know, I come from Russia and we do these rituals or we have these traditions. So it's not like we've lost tradition, but as a whole collective, this country has, you know, the people that were here before, they had a connection to the sacred, and they had the most exquisite, beautiful rites and ceremonies and rituals. And you can look at indigenous peoples throughout the world and see the color and the magnificence and the song and the dance and the prayer. And I do think that we are part of a time and an era that's calling that back, and also saying, I'm so sorry, you know, so sorry that we eradicated so many indigenous peoples and their cultures, and so many African peoples and their cultures. And now what? Now what do we do? How do we bring back the sacred as a whole to our lives? Because if we're not in right relation with the earth and the peoples of the earth, then of course our bodies are going to be out of whack. Our periods are going to be out of whack. Our fertility is going to be out of whack. Right. We're going to feel depressed, etc. Like, it's kind of like being out of touch with the thing that's our only ground,
their
which
essence.
is yeah. So, that to me, that return to sacred, to song, to prayer, to dance, to the reverence of the body, treating ourselves well, like precious, gorgeous, divine beings, is so it was such a huge homecoming for me.
Yeah. If it seems like, homecoming, it's like the return to the womb.
Yeah.
That's our original home.
Yeah, it is. And we're being asked right now, I think, to really listen.
Mm-hmm.
And to inquire. And I don't know what it looks like. I just know that right now it's like my practices and my connection to spirit, I'm leaning on it really heavily.
Yeah. It's an interesting time we're in. This is going to air later, and I hope by the time it airs, this is going to be over. But we just basically started our quarantine 3 weeks ago, was it? I don't even know. The time kind of like, time is non-existent anymore. But it's such an interesting time, I say, because there's so many things going on at once. There's worry, there's fear, there's concern for your loved ones. And at the same time, there's also this like peace in the earth. There's this pause to this crazy madness that we've been going through for so long. And we've been living in a very yang society. Yang is the movement, energy, a little more male dominant. And now we're moving into a yin, which is more, we're halted. We're just like forced into this yin of turning inward because we have no choice. Because I don't think we would have done it if we had a choice, and we haven't. So it's like the universe is forcing us inward. And what can this teach us?
Exactly. Sorry about my neighbor's dog.
No worries. My dog barks all the time.
Luna. I kind of like that she's just so active. We'll call her active.
Active.
She's like on alert. But I so agree with you about it being a yin time. It's like really a time where, I've been like, I'm like, wow, there's such a stillness, and I hear myself being like, oh my God, is my body just going to turn into like a pile of mush because I just feel like around so much. And I'm like, okay. But also I was thinking yesterday when I was, I don't remember, I was taking a bath or something. I was like, my grandma did not go to the gym. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like, where did like we get off track with our bodies of like, oh well, if I don't go to Pilates and Soul Cycle and all these things, then I'm not going to be lovable, and
it's really good marketing.
What?
The fitness, it's really good marketing. Marketing is, they teach you that you have to live with it. You can't live without it.
Yeah. And then I'm like, but my grandma wasn't a Soul Cycle, and she was instead like baking.
She would ride bicycles, right? I see at least people going back to riding bicycles.
Yeah. And it just reminds me, like, well, this morning I was like, what if I just cancel my bar classes and I just commit to dancing? And I've wanted to make that leap, but I've been scared. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get fat. I'm going to get soft. I'm going to get this, because that programming is just so deep.
Yeah.
And what if during this time I just like do my home dance practice, and like as if I was a temple goddess, not as if I'm like, a bar, but like a gym rat or something. I'm not ready for that transition, but I have been considering it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you got a little calling and you were listening to it and you're like, okay, a little whisper there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, can you share what Radical Awakenings community is?
Yeah. So a few years ago, I started a community called Moon Club. And Moon Club was me truly sharing my lunar ritual practice. This was maybe almost 5 years ago now. Um, and like I said, I've been practicing lunar rituals and return to feminine spirituality since I was about 19. So I made a vow to like Divine Mother that I would practice for 10 years before teaching others. Um, and that felt very important to me. And so I heard the call one day, like, you're ready to share this with others. And so I went to my friend Ruby Warrington, who is a writer and had this platform called The Numinous. And I said, hey, how would you feel about me leading a live moon ritual online? And at the time, 5 years ago, like, nobody was leading online stuff. It was new. It was still weird and freaky.
Yeah.
And we were like, is this going to even work? Are people going to tune in live? Is it going to be powerful? And I led them in a guided trance journey into the heart, and people loved it. And so I did them for free for 6 months as a public offering. And then I created a membership with Ruby where I led every month. And it was really around the lunar cycles. And we did that for, I think, about 3 years together, Ruby and I. And it was really beautiful. And we really crafted a community from that. And we had retreats as well. And some of the women that are my students and in my sort of heart circle are women that have been practicing ritual with me for like 4 years, 5 years maybe. And then last year, Ruby and I decided to put Moon Club to rest. At the time we created it, there were not a lot of other offerings in that space. And we realized that our purpose had been carried out, which was to put the moon kind of rituals out there and make it more mainstream. And then last year we thought, oh my gosh, there's like 1,000 moon ritual communities now online. And we were like, high five, our work here is done. We can close it now. And that's kind of how Ruby and I operate, is to kind of be the weirdos on the edge, doing it first. Not that we're the first ones ever, but just in the online space, we really poked around before and we saw, wow, no one else is doing this. And then once we felt like the message was transmitted, we could step away. And, it's something that I feel like I'm a manifestor in human design. So it's one of the skills I have. I'm not good at a lot of things, but one thing I am good at is stepping out on the cliff before anyone else does and looking like a weirdo and being like, all right, well, I look like a weirdo, but who cares?
No, you don't look like a weirdo. And I think it's actually, that's just, you have a lot of courage. You're just different.
Thank you. But so, and then when I felt like, well, now everybody's practicing lunar rituals and it's not weird. It's become more popular in the sort of spiritual communities. So I don't need to teach that anymore. I need to teach something else that's necessary. So then I was like, well, I'm going to ask the people in the community if they want to change over with me and stay in the community, but we're going to make it more about sharing our voices and being embodied and being sensual. And it's like a more tantric shamanic path of awakening. And a lot of women stayed. Some who were really into the astrology part of Moon Club were like, okay, I'm going to go. I just felt like I'm not going to teach those things anymore because they're super mainstream. Now I need to teach things that spirit wants to bring forth through my channel. And so we practice still trance journey together live on the full moon. And then we do my embodied divine feminine practice, which is a combination of breath, sound, movement, and writing, all kind of conjuring forth the divine feminine energy, our fullness, feeling it all. And then I have like a transformational workbook. It's an online membership. So we have all sorts of master classes and videos in the Teachable, which is like the online school. So it's like an online mystery school. And there's a lot of really beautiful stuff in there. There's writing practices, divine masculine practice, sensual embodiment practice. So you can just literally have the app on your phone and you can open it, and like if you have 20 minutes and you want to like drop into feeling sexy or lovey or writing, it's just easy. And so many of the people in the group are also like leaders and healers and writers and contributors to society. So it's like my pleasure to serve them as they serve the world as well.
That is very, very cool. It sounds amazing. And I
Yeah.
wanted to see if you can share like what feminine embodiment is and how it can impact fertility.
Mm-hmm. Well, we live in a world where we often are in our head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes.
we spend a lot of the time thinking, planning for the future, thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the past, considering like schedules and budgets and what we did wrong. So all
Yeah.
of that like head, right? Head. So embodiment is really the move from the head to the heart to the body. So if you thought about it, and if you're in your head and then you drop into your heart and then you drop into your womb, like you're really kind of dropping back down into the earth, which is kind of coming back down into your body. Now when we're disembodied, it's not that we're connected to spirit, and that's very different, right? So when we're disembodied, we're actually connected to like the zipping through of our thoughts, and we have
Mm-hmm.
thousands and thousands of thoughts zipping through.
Mm-hmm.
So our sort of beingness is not in the present. So one of my great teachers said to me once, the body can only exist in the present. So coming into the body means coming into presence.
That's
But a
great.
lot, yeah, but a lot of people, when you're talking to them, they're not really there. They're thinking about what they're going to say next or what they're going to do later. So they're disembodied.
Mm-hmm.
As weird as that might sound, it sounds a bit like kind of woo woo, but
Well,
it's
yeah. I
true.
mean, it makes sense. Like if you're driving, for example, and you kind of you're zoned out.
Oh, now
Where did that time go? It's like you left.
you left the building.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can feel it when someone's not there.
Yeah.
You feel it. It feels like you're sitting across from the shell of a human. It's not
Yeah.
a good feeling.
Right.
And then if you sit across from someone and they feel like you can feel they have a warm-hearted nature, right? Like like being in the presence of a grandmother or somebody who's just in the
Who really
present,
cares?
really cares. And it's like when you let your pussy start making decisions, or your heart, because your thoughts are conditioned and your thoughts are like laced with a lot of misbeliefs and fear. So when you come into your body through practice, your pussy will talk to you. Like it will, you could call it, your yoni, your vulva, whatever you'd like to call it, but it will talk to you and it will clench or it will throb, or your clit will throb when something is right. And that's when I know I'm in a deep communion, and I hate it when it's not. I hate it when my heart or my yoni are not connecting. I feel like I'm dying because I know that I'm not in my body, I'm not in the present, I'm not connected. But when it is, it's just like life feels good again.
Yeah.
And it takes so much work, because the way our society is set up is just like most of the time we're thinking about the past or we're thinking about the future. And so taking time where you're just in the present, meditating or dancing or singing or writing or doing any of the practices. I mean, it sounds crazy now. We have to practice to be
I
in our
know.
bodies.
You have to
where like,
practice to know how to live.
yeah, where our ancestors were like, we just used to go out and swim naked and dance and make
Right.
bread.
Yeah.
And you guys don't do any of that. So now you guys have to like open an app and practice being in
Right.
your body. Like they're laughing so hard at us right now. Like
Well,
I can
these like gurus in India laugh at us. I mean, they laugh all the time at the designs, but you're like, you're thinking too much. You're overthinking this.
overthinking it. I
Yeah.
know. I know.
And it's a Western thing.
Yeah. It's such a Western thing.
It
And it's
is.
a Northern Hemisphere Western. Because I honestly think like my dad's from Brazil and um I think that Latin culture, like some Latin cultures are have a different relationship to the body.
They
And I
also are very connected to each other socially. That's something that is
exactly and to the
that makes
family,
all the difference. You could see it with babies. I mean, if babies are given the love and affection and there's a lot more social connection, people
yeah.
in general, they don't get depressed and they're more well, what is the word? Just like they grow up really feeling good and healthy and
And
um
loved by
yeah,
family.
yeah.
So true.
Well adjusted. That was the word that I was looking for. They're more
Yeah,
well adjusted because they have that community and that safety. And
I
I
know.
think in Latin cultures, and I see it also with my patients, I'm in Miami. So I'll
Oh,
get
I was
people
born in Miami.
from, oh, were you? Oh,
My
cool.
dad is there right now, and I hate it. He's going grocery shopping by himself, and
Oh,
he's
no. He
almost
at
80.
least has to put a mask on, but he can order
Yes,
things.
he's wearing a mask, but he's almost 80 years old, and
Ah.
I hate that he's going to the grocery store. But he said he tried to order, and it said 6 days delay.
Now it's better. Tell him now it's better because it was like that. Now it's improved.
Where do you order from?
I ordered from Amazon Prime Now or
Okay,
Amazon Fresh. You can even order for him
okay.
from afar and also Instacart.
Amazon Fresh. Okay,
Hmm.
Instacart. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally understand. That's like the worry. That's the biggest worry that we're going through is our elders.
But he's so stubborn. He does not want to
They're
order.
stubborn.
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Ordering groceries online. He was born in
Oh,
1941.
he
Bless.
doesn't. He's like, what is that? He's like,
Yeah,
I want to feel my fruits.
exactly. So I have
Yeah,
to trust God with that one.
yeah. I know it's tough. It really is. I mean, it's some things we just have to surrender, and that's part of this process
Mm, mm, mm.
for sure. So let's talk about transformational self work. What is that?
Well, it's part of some of the stuff that I just talked about. There's different systems to understand transformation, be it alchemy or shamanism
Hmm.
or tantric Buddhism or gene keys or astrology. You can just consider transformation on the most basic level as like, you could say, how would you take shit and turn it into gold, right? Like,
Yeah, I like
so
that.
and that's like the oldest ancient alchemical kind of way of looking at it. It's like if I
Yeah.
said, hey, here's a pile of shit, turn it into gold, honey. You might go, oh shit, that takes me 10 lifetimes.
But let me
Literally,
tell you, shit is a good fertilizer. So
there you go. Yeah,
grow
maybe it
some good
takes
stuff.
20 lifetimes, maybe it takes 50 lifetimes. If you don't believe in reincarnation, totally fine. But
Yeah.
you can look at it as a day. Maybe it takes 10 days, 5 days, or maybe it takes 10 years. But say your transformational material, say the shit is that you were let's not say something too let's see, what's that? I'll take
Oh,
one of
it's
mine.
fine. Go for it.
Well, I'll take one of mine. Like no, that one's probably not the, like say you've gone through a sexual abuse, right? Most women have, and it's not, I won't get specific about it, but say you've gone through a sexual trauma and you have that shit kind of stinking around, like, oh, why did this happen to me? Now I don't trust people. Now I can't feel sexual pleasure. Now I'm ashamed of myself. Now I'm spoiled. And so the patterns related to that traumatic event begin to form, right? And that
Hmm.
they form over time in your nervous system, in your physical, emotional, spiritual body. Beliefs can form around that event. fear and anxiety or depression can form around that event. So you had this kind of event that happened in life that was like created, like this was your shit, right? And now it's like, not only has created that from that event, but it's like now it's kind of stinking up a lot of other parts of your life. So that would be your transformational material. Now, if someone were to walk into a room and see you, they might not know that you were like carrying a bag of that shit, right? In the bag is like the belief that you're dirty, that you're spoiled, that you're not good enough now, that you're fucked up, or all of that stuff is in your bag of shit. People might not notice that about you at first glance, right? But you know that it's there. And so then how do you take that experience? Again, that's non-physical reality, unless it is physical reality, which would be, say you have like a bruise or something. But let's say in non-physical reality, you're carrying this bag of shit, and metaphorically speaking, you can either ignore it for years and years and years, right? Which is what most people do. And it turns into depression, anxiety, disease, weight gain, whatever it is. Period problems, or you sit with that bag of shit and you go, all right, me and bag of shit, let me open this up, and I'm about to get my hands dirty. Now, it's not a one size fits all process. And if it was, like, the gods would be like, ha ha ha, that's not how it goes, kiddos. Like, we don't, you have to figure it out, you guys.
Right.
So in that is like where you enter into your heroine's journey and you go, all right, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to transform this shit into gold? Right? Like,
yeah.
Is it through art? Is it through talk therapy? Is it through plant medicine? Is it through writing a book? Is it through a grief ceremony? Is it through working with little girls who have been sexually abused as a counselor for 10 years? Like, that process for you of transformation of that material will be its own. It could be literal mantra and prayer and rituals and for 10 years and until it clears. And it's different for everyone, so you have to really sit and go through the process and listen to your own soul, because if you don't have the dialogue with your internal self, then you're just pulling from random. Oh, I got to read this book and I do this online class. No, you got to look inside and say, what do you need? Right. Your spirit might say, like, you know what? Like, in order to turn this shit into gold, you have to write a book about it. Or your spirit might say, no, in order to turn this shit into gold, you have to serve other people that have been through the same trauma and show them that it's possible. Or it might be that you have to dedicate yourself to a certain practice for a certain amount of time and work. And after the forgiveness comes working on this and that and the other. So, it's, for me, I don't teach a one size fits all healing or transformational process, because I just think everybody is so different. But I do teach, first and foremost, ritual and reuniting with the body, because if you come into your sensual embodiment, you come into your body, you make peace with it, you make peace with God, goddess in yourself, you start to practice ritual, lighting your candles, praying, chanting, writing in your journal, then you'll start to hear from spirit, from yourself, from your heart, from your womb, wherever it's coming from, you'll start to hear what you need. And from my path, it's been, I've just followed the signs. So it's like, okay, you need to do ayahuasca. Okay, great. I'm doing it. Then someone shows up at my doorstep and they're like, hey, you should do this. So it's like, oh, you need to go to India. Okay, great. You're going to India. Like, so, but that's my path. And as my first spiritual teacher said, he was like, you're an open-minded extremist. So I'm a bit of an extremist, maybe.
You just go with what you're given.
Yeah.
That's your gift.
For some people, it might be like, I need to write a poem, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be some big thing. It might be, I need to start a circle of women. Like, I just started a writers group with like 5 friends that were writing for 2 hours a week, because my heart was
great.
You need to do that. And it's just like a private thing. It's not public. So it's like asking your own heart in deep meditation or in deep practice, what do you need in order to transform?
Yeah.
Maybe it's letting go of something. Maybe part of your turning shit into gold is letting go of a old job or a relationship or an identity. So yeah, it's a very magical process. And I think, the way that I would say to begin is to really work on your embodiment so that you can hear the messages from you. Um, and also to just deepen into your practices of prayer, meditation, breath, doing all of those kind of things that connect you with yourself.
So, speaking about writing, can we talk about your book coming out in July?
Yeah, I got postponed because of Corona, but I actually am fine with that. So um, this book is really my transformational journey, how I went from having problems with food and disordered eating and controlled eating and body shame. And I mean, I really went through that my whole life. I really felt body dysmorphia and yeah, control around the body. And it manifested as regular periods, bad cramps for a long time. And so I had to go through that process of healing. Um, and I did move through it. And that was a huge part of my own coming to peace with the feminine, with my thighs, with my butt, with my all of it. um, and another piece being my sexuality. So the book really is about my journey with my voice, my body, and my sexuality, and teaching other women to work through the same transformations. So sexual shame, thinking like that, being embarrassed for your sexual desires, or feeling like you're too much or you're not enough, or you should be ashamed or whatever. Or perhaps you've been through sexual traumas, big ones or little ones. So a lot of that is also in the book. And also healing and transformation around the voice, that each of us has a voice that matters in the world, and that it's not too much, and that it's not enough. It's just right as
It
it
just
is.
is, yeah.
Yeah. So the book really, it ties in my own journey with those kind of three key elements, and then how to work with those things as catalysts. So if you have body shame or sexual shame or fear of being seen or speaking up, how you can actually take that and like use it as a jumping board. So
Right.
you jump off, and then you get even more blasted and more big and delicious and juicy.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
almost like martial arts, how they work around energy.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is the same. So it's like if you've been given some of this material that's very, maybe dense or scary in tantric Buddhism, that means that you're ready to really blast. Like it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
because you're
I
a
love
bad
that. That's such an empowering way to look at it.
yeah,
That's great.
it's not because you're a bad person. You just decided to work through a lot this life.
Hmm.
And so it's an opportunity, and it's like, okay, take that opportunity. Don't become a victim.
Yeah.
Don't just be in the sort of stagnant, but like see this as like, oh, I can use this for the benefit of myself and all beings.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so the book is really a manual and like a workbook, and has great exercises and stories, and it has humor, and it has, tragedy, comedies, eroticism, lots of great anecdotes, and like ways that I have reclaimed my sexuality and my sensual nature, my relationship to the divine feminine, and my voice. And um, yeah, and I'm really excited to share it with other women, because I feel like we're all worthy of being seen, of being heard, of our sexual desires being fulfilled, and all of our bodies are incredible regardless of what they look like. And I see that it's still a problem out there, all those things, and the statistics say it,
Yeah.
um, the amount of people spending money on certain things, or the amount of statistics around sexual assault or whatever, like it's still we still don't believe that we're enough usually as women, and there's still a lot of healing to be done. So It's time for the mothers, the oracles, the prophetesses, the priestesses to rise, in
Yes.
society.
Amen. And I think that it's so amazing that you're contributing to this, because in your heart you've had that awakening, you've had those signposts, and you're actually living it. So you're a great example of that. And I appreciate you coming on. And I wanted to ask you, how can people find you?
The best place is on Instagram. My Instagram is just my name, at Alexandra Roxo. And I share a lot on there. I love to write. I'm really like a writer first and foremost. So I write a lot of poetry, and I really want to inspire you to connect with your divine feminine being, and to mother, and to earth, and to your deep, beautiful, erotic, spiritual nature. So connect with me on Instagram. It's super fun.
Yeah,
And
you have a great Instagram. I love it. I really enjoy it. And it really does. You do give a lot of that energy of the divine feminine through the pictures, the images,
thank
everything.
you.
Yeah.
And also, I want to offer to everyone who's listening that you could get a free month of my membership, Radical Awakenings, where basically you can get all these practices. You can practice with me live. I'll lead you in ritual. And we're going to put the link, I think, in the notes for you. But it's just the code is Radical Awakenings Love, which you can use at the checkout. And it's for a trial month. So, it's $44 a month if you want to stay signed up.
Is that
after.
all caps?
Yeah. Radical Awakenings Love,
Okay,
all
so I'm
caps.
gonna put that in there.
And, come join me for a month. Try it out if you feel like it. We won't like blast you with a bunch of spam or anything like that. We're a little bit more DIY, so I haven't gotten my spam together yet. It's more like everything's by hand. But we we come together and we meditate, we breathe, we practice, we sing, we cry. And then there's also just like, if you don't want to do things in group, there's just different workbooks and writing meditations and things you can just do on your own in there.
Cool. So I'm definitely going to put that in, the coupon code Radical Awakenings Love for the first month free. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for providing that. That's great.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to have you on. We've been trying for so long, and we finally did it. I'm so happy.
Thank you so much for your patience.
So thank you so much again for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, everybody. Sending lots of love to everyone. Thank you for listening.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.